Hello, I'm Derek Wheatley, and welcome to episode 47 of the Wheatley Podcast. I want to say a big thank you to Nicola Glynn for last week's episode. It was really interesting. I know it helped a lot of people, a lot of mothers as well, who maybe didn't quite know what all the anxiety was during pregnancy. Certainly something I didn't know about the perinatal mental health, things like that. It's a lot of interest in something we hadn't covered before, so we really appreciate her coming on. We'll be doing the Instagram live series, just popping them up every now and again, just a bit of crack over the winter, just, keep the spirits up, I suppose. Appreciate all the shares for the podcast as usual. It's very nice of you to do, and it gets it out there, with Facebook not really helping me out too much. We're doing a Sunday live. You know what I do on that. I don't have to go over that every time. Subscribe to our YouTube if you will, and you know where to find us everywhere else. Listen, we'll get into it. I'd like to introduce my next guest, who is a wrestler, and he's one of the hosts of the HumanzeeJitzu Podcast, and his name is Con Fennelly. How are you doing, Con?
How's it going? Good. Glad to be on here. Big honor for me.
Thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for reaching out on that. It's great to not have to go hunting for people,
Yeah, no. Well, on our podcast, we kind of I know a lot of the weekly is about mental health. Big advocate for mental health, and so am I. We'll cover how when we're kind of going on and on, as you said earlier on, before we actually went on camera, but or start recording. But I'm a big advocate for mental health, and every Sunday we do a weekly check-in. Well, I've been kind of forgetting to do it recently, but I've been kind of doing it during the week anyways. Either way, where people kind of just, kind of trying to get people to kind of even reach out a little bit, just to be like, how's everybody doing? And it's hugely important, So
yeah.
It's fun to reach out anyways, and here we are.
Yeah, I think, look, the thing about it, I say it so many times, and I'm sure you've said it yourself, it's the more voices involved, the better it is for everyone,
It's more comfortable than for people to reach out,
Exactly, yeah.
I've had people reach out to me, just being like, how's it going? Just asking me how it's going. And even that's a step in the right direction to be like, it's like, even if you're not saying, I don't feel great, you're still starting it as, how are you? And then that'll bounce off them to back to yourself again. Do you know what
exactly.
I mean? So you're inadvertently helping yourself.
Exactly. Absolutely, I agree 100%. So, could you give us a bit of a short history of your upbringing, please, Con?
My upbringing was kind of rough. It was rough for me, anyways. That being said, when you hear it, you're kind of going to be like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. But it is kind of one of those specific situations where it's kind of like, it's actually kind of, when you hear kind of on just general outlines of it, it sounds like it's all right. But when you're me, it's completely different, and we'll cover that later on. But basically, I was born in Thailand, and we've actually covered this on the Humanity Podcast as well. But that's a different thing. This is more kind of mental health based, so it'll be a bit heavier. But basically, I was born in Thailand, in Chiang Mai. I don't know. See, I should know. But basically, I was abandoned in a hospital at one day old. On the 27th of the 1st, 99. So on the 30th, basically my mother abandoned me at a hospital. I ended up staying in the hospital for 6 months, and then I moved to an adoption home for a year. So then I stayed there for a year basically. An adoption home it's not an orphanage. It's kind of different. Adoption home could have hundreds and hundreds of kids, being taken care of by only a handful of almost kind of teachers / parents / caregivers and stuff. And it's kind of divided up by age, depending on how long they've been there. And that's adoption homes are something completely different, over in Thailand and over in Asia. It's kind of like, if you don't get adopted by a certain age, you end up going on to a monk's monastery and ended up being a monk. And that's not so bad in terms of you get to kind of be in touch with your religion, which is Buddhism over there, and that's a whole different story. But anyways, I was adopted at 1.5 by my current parents now, hence my parents, I just call them my man and dad, or the old lads. Actually, my dad's birthday there on Monday.
Oh, nice.
Now that I mention it, he's 60, so he's pretty up there. But I'm 21 as well, so everybody kind of makes sense when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I ended up moving from Thailand to here to Tullamore Offaly, where I currently reside because I am broke and I can't move out. But yeah, no, and it's been kind of like between everything, like, you know, we'll cover this during the podcast, but like throughout my whole life, it's kind of been like, you know, you're completely different from everybody else, but you're also the same as everybody else at the same time. Because a lot of my friends are very good for this. I don't thank them enough for this. Like when I was younger, I was included in a lot of stuff. Now when I've gotten older, it's kind of like, you know, you kind of get included less because, you know, everybody has their own shit going on. But like when I was younger, it would have been kind of like, you know, you wouldn't even think that you're adopted. It's kind of like, you know, you're just one of the lads or one of the classmates. Like, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, no, and then basically all the way up, I dropped out of school at around 16 or 17 because it just wasn't my thing. I'd gone through a massive breakup at that stage, and it was kind of like, look, I don't actually like school. And then actually, it turns out somebody in my classroom had actually shifted my ex, like literally a couple of days after. Literally a couple of days after we'd broken up. So I was like, right, I'm either going to kick the shit out of you, and I'm literally going to murder you, or like I'm just going to drop out. So I dropped out anyways, and then at that stage as well, I just recently found out that I didn't make it on the Leinster team because I was on the Midlands development squad for rugby.
Oh.
And yeah, I didn't make the Leinster team, obviously, but that kind of tied into it as well, where it's kind of like, oh, fuck this, like, you know, no, it's not worth it. Like, and just in my eyes, it just wasn't worth it. Now looking back on it, it's a different story, but like, but back then, like, you know, you only know what you know in the moment, like, so I kind of just dropped out of school, and then rugby wasn't really my thing anymore because that was a bit of a disappointment. And then I got on to jiu-jitsu because some of my friends from school had actually done jiu-jitsu and stuff and grappling, and I was kind of like, yeah, I'm bored. I'm not doing anything else. I'm staying at home, like, you know, really wasting my whole off. So like I just joined, and then I ended up being kind of okay at it. And then 3 weeks in, I did my first competition, which was a stupid idea. Never do that. It's not enough time to prepare. Like it just isn't. And then I think 2 weeks after that, I won my first competition, and then I kind of ended up sticking at it because it's kind of like, oh, I've won a competition just 5 or 6 weeks in, like maybe less than 2 months in. And in rugby, I'd been doing it for like about 12 years at that stage, and I'd only won like, you know, most important player or something like that. And, you know, you don't really get much medals and stuff in rugby because it was very team based, which, you know, which is what I loved about it. But when you went into grappling, it's kind of more like, oh, I'm doing this for me. But just the side benefits of like, you know, being with your team there, but you're kind of like, you know, you're kind of competing on your own stuff. It's completely different. So that kind of changed my whole head kind of perspective. Really, like, you know, it's brought me along so far. Like if I didn't like, you know, join grappling or anything, like I'd probably be dead. And that's not. And everyone's like, oh, I should probably be dead, but like, you know, this is literally legit. I'd probably be probably dead. Because I've done the self-harm and I've done the whole suicide and everything else, like, you know, it's suicide attempts and everything, which didn't work because I'm still here talking on this podcast. But
thankfully,
yeah, I've done it all basically, and it's like grappling to save my life, and then, like, you know, then the wrestling kind of came into it, which is kind of like rugby. So it's kind of like you get, because I had one of the best tackle rates in rugby as well, which is why which is probably one of the reasons why I got into Midlands. But yeah, it kind of wrestling kind of synced up with rugby, but it's also grappling. So that's kind of where I started, you know, kind of chaining into wrestling more so than grappling. Then, you know, there's the whole Irish team. I ended up competing in the Irish Open a couple of times, then Dublin Open. Then I got on to the Irish team somehow, and then went over to England to compete in England, won bronze, and I've been kind of living off that ever since March, and I can't wait to get back now. I've got the Europeans in January. So, well, qualifiers, I think. So,
well, let me dig into that a bit then, right? So, when did you? This is always the second question, right? So like, when did you first become aware of mental health, and that's in general rather than maybe even your own, you know?
Yeah. See, there's a funny thing as well. It was around when I was about second or third year or something like that. It was during TY. Now, obviously, you kind of think about. Oh, my head's in fucking bits, or like I'm pissed off all the time. But whenever there's actually a talk about stuff, then it kind of all clicks, and that's what mental health is, and that's why you're kind of not going the same, but that's kind of what will be kind of classified as becoming aware of your own mental health and other people's mental health and how everything else can affect it, or how yours affects somebody else's mental health, etc. But we had have you heard of SOAR?
No.
SOAR. No, SOAR is like it's like it's kind of like a foundation, but it's like when they came to our school to do a talk on mental health, just kind of like checking in with your friends and stuff. It was this huge thing on like everyone's kind of like, oh, because the year before us did it and that was their first year. This is their second year doing it to talk to TYs. So they came anyways, and everyone was kind of expected to start crying and start like it's kind of like, oh, it's really heavy, it's full of emotions, and we didn't get this at all. Like, so half of us didn't have a clue. Yeah, like it's kind of funny that way, but no, it ended up being like they ended up doing this big talk on mental health, and they ended up going through something called the hero's journey, which is like a big giant U. If you look at it, I'm sure you probably know about it. Where it's like you start at the top, and then as life goes on, like you might start going up, and then something bad happens, so then you start going down, and then as you move on, you get better at dealing with kind of things and learn how to kind of adapt to situations or just adapt to feeling different emotions essentially, and then you start rising again. So then it ends up being kind of like a U. That's where the whole hero's journey kind of comes in. And they actually showed a video, which is a great, like hopefully this doesn't get copyrighted now, but they showed a video of a YouTube music video by Rudimental, and it's called Not Giving In, I think. Not 100% sure. Basically, there's a guy who loves BMX, like his BMX is his life, and he's got loads of friends in, let's say, LA or some city in America. And basically, what happens is he gets run over by a car, and he loses his legs, or he loses one of his legs, sorry. And kind of the story goes on about the music video. It's kind of like an underlying kind of mental toughness rather than like raising awareness, but then breaking it down raises the awareness of it. It's kind of like the genius of what they did, and I was kind of like, whoa. But like, yeah, it was kind of one of those things. But like, basically throughout the whole video, it's kind of like, what happened at the start? It's like, oh, he got hit by a car. Like, what happened when he got hit by the car? He lost his leg, and then it's like, did he give up? No, he kept fighting. He got his prosthetic, and he did his physiotherapy, and he kept trying to get back on his bike basically. And I won like a guy with a prosthetic leg on a BMX doing stunts, doing whatever the fuck he was doing, and that's actually based on a true story. And I say that a lot, but that is actually something that's based on a true story. And your man is acting in that is actually based on him, I think.
Oh, right.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah. So that's kind of like breaking that whole kind of sequence down. It's kind of like what we're doing now, where you kind of where does your mental health come into it, and where does your mental toughness come into it, and how does that affect you as a person, or how did that affect him as a person?
Yeah.
Moving on from that bad thing that happened in his life, which again, hero's journey. So he's doing great. There's his life. Gets hit by a car, loses his leg, all the way down, and then that might be his lowest point, so then he starts rising again.
Yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great, like, I talk a bit about this as well, because obviously you're not too long out of school, like 4 years or whatever it is. I think. I've asked a lot of people about this, and even our last guest who talked a bit about what they're doing for the people in school, kids in school, to learn about where their mind could go and where it could take them, and also about like where they can kind of reestablish some footing if they do kind of go off a ledge or whatever. So I think that's hugely important. So what I want to, I suppose, dig down into then is, so you talked. So what age were you when you joined SPG then?
Oh God, I don't remember. I think I might have been 18.
Right. So.
No, sorry, 17. I joined in like October when I was 17. Then I turned 18 like 4 months later. So like. Yeah.
So.
Our side of 17.
So you're 3 years out, right? So a bit over 3 years out, I would say. Yeah.
3 or 4 years out. Yeah.
So. Like how important, and I you talked about it a bit already, and I talk about it all the time with regards to fusion here in Athlone. Like, how important has it been for your mental health?
It's something that's like kind of it's a bit kind of hard to understand once you do it, or once you kind of do that kind of thing where you can actually physically express your emotions. Like some people physically express their emotions and kind of get rid of their mental health, or just kind of clear their head essentially via, like, let's say painting, or let's say they go hunting. Maybe hunting's not one of them. Maybe that's just kind of, well, it could be one of them. Yeah. Kind of just being out on their own, and the forest, kind of like focused on one thing rather than just like, oh shit, I've got this to deal with and then work, and then I've got my mom to deal with as well because she's sick or whatever. Like, there's always these kind of things. But with jiu-jitsu, it is, and grappling, it is kind of, even kickboxing, it is kind of one of those kind of things where you don't have time to think about it. Well, actually you do, but it's not one of those things where you want to think about anything else or nothing else kind of infringing on your ability to just kind of turn off.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, it's funny because like the way it's kind of taught, it's like school, where it's kind of like, here's your equation, here's what you do, here's what you do if this happens, and go practice it. That's literally what it is. Like, in jiu-jitsu, it's your 3 techniques. So let's say if you're doing an armbar, you go on from mount into S mount, and then let's say if he does this, then you've got an armbar on the far side, or if he does this, you've got an armbar close to you, or if he does this, the third option, you go for a triangle. And then you practice it, and you practice it, and you practice it. Now, that's actually the same format as school, but the way school is, it's not something that you can turn off and do it.
Yeah.
You have to be fully mentally engaged. In jiu-jitsu, you can be engaged, but you're kind of just like, oh yeah, no, it's cool, and you kind of flow through it because it's actually a physical thing rather than thinking in your head, 2 squared is 4, and then, well, what if I need to find the square root of 16, whatever, and then or the root cube of like 16, which should be again 2, but like it is, you kind of get to learn, you get the satisfaction of learning something and then doing it, whilst you're kind of getting killed by another human.
Yeah.
Like that's why I think is the funny part as well, which is why it makes it so good for your health. Like, you're hanging out with your friends and everything, and then 2 minutes later you're trying to strangle them or throw them on their head.
Yeah.
And then 2 minutes later you're talking about like, life and kids.
Yeah.
Everyone's vulnerable. Like, it's not just like, and it is kind of, I think a big part of it is where you're being intimate with somebody, but not in any other way other than like, he could kill you, but then he could kill you.
Yeah.
In that situation, but he's not, and you tap, and then you let go, and then you start again.
Yeah.
And then that's how trust builds. And then, when you get, after a while, it kind of just turns into this thing where you turn off. Once you step on the mats, you turn off, and then that's you. You're in this whole new kind of bubble.
Yeah.
Rather, there's no work outside. There's no like, somebody's sick. There's no this. There's no that. If you're just trying to not get armbarred, that's all you're working on.
Yeah.
Or you're laughing while it's happening.
I mean, that's perfect description of it, and the whole idea of, I suppose I talk about anxiety a lot, and the thing to do with not having the time to think about the things that are making you anxious in the moment. I think that's what's brilliant for me about jiu-jitsu in particular, and my teammates. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a bit. So you put up. I was obviously when you mentioned to me about coming on the show, and I had to look you up to see what the crack was. I do a bit of digging in that, and that's part of it. But you put up 2 or 3 posts actually on Mental Health Day, I think it was. And you found at that point when you put those posts up, was there a reason like you decided to make it that day, like to come out to talk about it?
Well, I've talked about it before, but it didn't really get much kind of viewership as it would be, because whenever you kind of put up something like mental health up on Spotify, it's kind of like, oh, heavy, pushed away, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it was Mental Health Day as well, so I was kind of just like, here, look, a lot of people are like, oh, check in with your friends on Mental Health Day, and they never check in. And I know people who've just been like, who've said that, and they've been like, oh, I'm here for you, and they've never checked in, and anytime you check in with them, it's like, oh, well, yeah, sound, that's it. Like, so it is kind of one of those things where it's aggressively shoving it in your face. Like, if you want to ignore it, you can ignore it. I'm not like, it's not my kind of thing to be like, here, you have to read this. But I would be kind of like headstrong on the view that people, whenever it comes to Mental Health Day and stuff, they kind of like to jump on the bandwagon and just be like, here, look, check in on your friends, and then that never happens. Like, they're calling other people fucking dopes, like, out on my out, like, and they're calling them fucking every name under the sun and stuff. Like, that's not, like, obviously, like, there's times when somebody pisses you off and you're like, you're a dickhead. But like, when it comes to this kind of stuff, it is one of those things where, especially mental health or suicide awareness, where people kind of just like, they talk about it because that's the day, and then they forget about it for like, ever, or like until it happens the same thing next year. So I kind of just like ended up aggressively putting it out there and being like, hey, look, this is what the story is with me. This could be any of your friends that aren't speaking up about it. So just check in on your fucking friends. Like, I've had friends that fucking. There was a guy actually in SPG. I'm not sure if you remember. I'm not sure it's in Tullamore, but I'm not sure if you remember seeing his post. But his name was Jordan Murphy. And me and him at the start didn't really get along, but then eventually what happened was that's just me being a fucking anxious prick, like, because I was kind of afraid to get to know anybody, because I was still starting as well. But then eventually, anyways, we became pretty good friends, and he used to work in the local brewery tap, like, as a barman / waiter, and he was very good at his job, like, and he was a great guy. And I remember seeing him and chatting him for about an hour, and then just like, and then he died like literally 2 days later. He got run over by a van. It's fucking awful. But then, like, I remember fucking people are just like, oh, they kind of made a big post about it, and then it kind of got forgotten about, and I was kind of like, well, that's not good, really. Like, I mean, obviously there's nothing you can do when somebody's kind of passed on, but like, it's kind of one of those situations where something gets said, like attention's brought to it, and then once attention's brought to it, it kind of gets forgotten about, because it's like, oh, my job's done, attention's been brought to it, whatever. And I was tore up over that kind of thing. And then when it comes to suicide and mental health kind of thing, that kind of thing just pushed me over the edge. So I was like, I know for a fact that you were an absolute cunt to some people, like, to their face, and then here you are spouting off about, like, checking on your mates and stuff. But also it's just about people to kind of like, get them checking on their mates. Like, that wasn't me. That wasn't telling them to check in on me. Because let's say if we're not close or anything, like, I wouldn't expect you to check in on me or anything. But I've got two lads there that checked in on me today and yesterday, and I was actually showing HumanzeeJitzu and Humanzee from my podcast, from our podcast. But like, they're kind of the people that wouldn't really be forgetting about it, because they do grappling and jiu-jitsu and stuff, so they know well about, like, the mental health side of it. And then also they've kind of gone through their own shit too, so they know themselves. And whenever people don't go through this kind of stuff, everybody's gone through their own kind of thing, but obviously it can be worse for others than it is for some. So whenever it's kind of like, oh, make sure you check in on your friends, it is genuinely checking on your friends. Like, it doesn't have to be me, like, like, and that's kind of what people got from it as well. And it's kind of like, oh, I hope you're okay. And it's like, no, I'm grand, but, like, the post wasn't made for me. It was made for people who, like, let's say, are kind of like, lose connection a little bit, or like they're distancing themselves from their friends, and it's being noticed but nobody's saying anything. It's kind of like you need to kind of like stay on top of it. And I know it is kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, you're whining about staying in touch with your friends, but it is like, I'll shout that from the rooftops. Like, I'll give out to people about that if it's kind of like, oh yeah, I don't want to start a drama by asking him if he's okay. It's like, well, you should ask him anyways, even if he doesn't reply. Like, he knows at least somebody's reaching out to him.
Can I just kind of jump in, because like it and I know you're saying like it was aggressive and things like that, and I understand what you mean by that, but I think it was very stark and kind of raw. And like when you touch on words, like they're trigger words almost for people who don't know. And so things like when you talked about loneliness and suicide and like abandonment and abandonment issues and things like this, they're very like I said, they're very heavy and very raw, and people just don't. It's like they don't know how to respond to it, and then it becomes that thing, like, yourself, like when it comes to that thing where you're like, maybe I won't say anything because I'll embarrass myself or something,
Yeah, it is, as you said, kind of trigger words. And it, like, for people who haven't really, obviously, again, I'm going to say people who haven't really gone through stuff. Like, obviously, when I say that, I mean people who haven't gone through the same experience that I have. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, just in case people are kind of confused about it later on. But if people who haven't gone through the same experiences as you, or not as extreme, it's still relevant. Like, I'm not taking that away from anybody, and I never take that away from anybody. And but like, it is kind of one of those things where even if you do experience it a little bit, so if you see somebody writing down suicide awareness, loneliness, abandonment issues, trust issues, a lot of that would be kind of considered, I'm just gonna like it, scroll down, and get rid of it really quickly. If I like it and scroll away, it'll disappear. That kind of thing. And I kind of wanted it to be raw and kind of get people to be like, what is this like? Not because I wanted attention on myself. Again,
no.
Which, like, it is like, I'm going to say that a lot actually, because I can't stress it enough. And a lot of people have said it to me about, like, oh, I hope you're doing okay. It's like, that's for me, but thanks. But, like, because then at least they're attempting or trying to make the attempt at checking in. And trigger words are, like, I think this whole thing of, like, safe space and stuff, like, it's great and everything, but if something needs to be brought to attention, then it needs to be brought to attention.
Yeah, people have to bring it forward for even it to be thought about, and it has to be the people who go through it. There's no point in someone like a fiction writer coming out with all this stuff and then everybody talking about it because it was written in a book about fiction. It has to be from the people who have gone through all these things, Yeah,
it is. Like, actually, I had an issue with my mother a little while. This was years ago. But there's this guy who was an expert in adoption. It's kind of like how to, like, raise a child who's adopted. It's kind of like I got mad about this because I'd kind of fly over to England and watch all the seminars and stuff, and I'd be kind of like, here, look, what's that about? Like, and I was only like 15 or 16, but I didn't realize. Well, I was younger than that actually. I might be 14, but I didn't realize this is kind of like for me. Didn't work very well because I ended up fucked up. I know that's me. But it was kind of one of those things where it was like, is he adopted? No. Then why is he chatting about it so much as if he's a fucking expert? Like, he clearly just because I remember listening in on one of the things, and he was kind of like, your child will feel this, your child will feel that. It's like, how do you know what I'll feel like? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's kind of like when somebody says, when you say to somebody, no, I feel like shit. It's kind of like, oh, well, should just, like, go out and get busy. Well, or don't think about it. It's like, oh, I did not think of that solution. Thank you, you genius. I will give you €5 for your efforts. And it's kind of like,
what you're saying about the adoption thing there, I've talked about this before with guests and stuff, and it took me a long time to kind of come to terms with the fact that sometimes I was being told what to do by experts in their field. I understand that, but they haven't gone through what I've gone through. When I spoke to people who had gone through what I'd gone through and were able to have a one-on-one conversation, I've learned a lot more. Like, I've taken so much more away from it. And I think, is that what you mean by the adoption side of things?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you kind of understand. It's kind of almost like takes one to know one kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know that sounds a bit kind of like, peachy and everything, but like, it is kind of sometimes that kind of case of it takes one to know one. Yeah, especially with adoption, especially with mental health and everything. Like, if you're going through, like, awful thoughts, like, suicide and stuff, I've been there. I understand. I'm not going to be like, oh, go to a psychiatrist or anything, because I know if I tell you to go to a psychiatrist, you're going to be like, no, fuck that. Like, no, like I know a few people who would have been years ago, who would have been pretty suicidal. And actually, my first girlfriend had pretty bad mental health, and that's just where she was in her life with her parents and everything. And she'd be kind of like, oh, I want to die and everything. I was like, here, look, I want you to just cuddle a big teddy bear and pretend it's me, because I can't go with you right now. But that's literally one of those kind of things where you understand, and it's not like, go to a doctor.
Yeah.
There's another thing about psychiatrists, not taking anything away from them, but whenever you go to a psychiatrist, you're kind of forced into this situation where you have to talk about something, and it's kind of you explaining yourself rather than talking about it. And I know this for a fact because I used to go to a place in England called Family Futures, this mental health adoption kind of thing for people and for adoptees, and all over in England, very expensive, etc. But basically what it was, it's kind of like, kind of have to explain yourself, and it's almost like being given out to by the principal, and then you'll explain yourself, and then you go, literally, you're not even being given out to about it, but it has that same vibe of, I don't want to talk about it, because you don't know what I'm going through, only I do, and I'm forced into this situation here, and I have to stay here until the 3 hours are up, or whatever. And like, it would be proper stressful that way, and that's why I think a lot of people who do grappling and stuff can talk about it so easily, because I'm getting strangled by you, but I'm also going through a lot of shit, but also you could be going through a lot of shit, and we're both in this position of, we could kill each other right now, but we're not going to. And then, since you have that bonding of killing each other while not actually killing, simulated death, that's one. Everybody kind of like, you kind of open up to each other. And then that's why I'm able to talk about this to you now, because I know for a fact that you know what I'm talking about when I mean take someone to know one.
Yeah, for sure.
To make it easy, even to make it easy to talk to, like, I've got, it would be kind of one of those things where if I'm chatting to a friend who's like, pretty bad mental health, I wouldn't really be talking about, like, how's your head? I'd be kind of like, how are you? Any crack? And have you heard about this, 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 and this? And trying to, like, make sure they're still kind of into the things that they're still into.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's into something like a lot, they're going to stay into it kind of mostly trying to. If they're kind of like, oh, I'm not really bothered, then kind of something's wrong without being like, how is your mental health?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
If I say that to you, like, I don't know, you're kind of like, fine.
Yeah.
Why you ask?
It is. It's like you're almost, to see if they've checked out or anything. It's very important. Con, let me just read the ad here, and we'll get back into it. All right. So, Fusion Training Centre, Monksland, Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Centre or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Centre, train like a warrior. So, I want to ask you then about the jiu-jitsu and people like Kieran Davern, who is clearly a very inspiring kind of figure, and we've had him on here. I've been at seminars with him and stuff. And I'm not just talking about Kieran, but he just to put a name out there. How have those positive influences helped you since you were 17?
Yeah, immensely. Like it is kind of one of those things where I owe him my life, kind of thing. It sounds like, oh, he saved you from getting thrown in jail. It's like, no, when I went into the gym, I was suicidal. I had depression. I was borderlining on. I was self-harming, but it wasn't really like the general kind of way. I kind of let myself get hurt rather than self-inflicting it, which is kind of self-infliction, but it's a different way of doing it without actually going through the fact of, like, cutting yourself.
Yeah.
You're kind of letting somebody else do it for you inadvertently. It's not anything on them either. It's kind of just your own thing. But yeah, he, like, all those. I had people like Sid, Sid Allen, and like I would have been very close to Philippe Goodney, who's one of the lads in my gym, because he started around the same time. I eventually got close to Jack Dolan, so that was kind of a nice another kind of thing, because they're all kind of around Ben Grimes type, Ty Field and all that. Like, they'd be kind of all around my age, so that'd be kind of another thing. And the way Kieran kind of does it is, you kind of all get to know each other afterwards, after training anyway. It's not just train, go home. Train, roll, go home. Like, you know yourself how it is where you go in and train, and then you literally chat shit for about an hour in the change rooms or just on the mats. And that's how you kind of get to know people. And that's how you kind of, like, you can kind of just be yourself, and nobody's going to give a fuck. Like literally, like, everyone's going to be kind of like, oh yeah, well, do you like this or do you like that? And then you slowly get to know people. But just the way that's kind of ran, I suppose, it all kind of travels from that top of the pyramid down, where, like, if you don't have a great coach that kind of checks in with you regularly, or even just in general, or it kind of gives you the ability to be able to speak if you're, like, feeling like shit. Because you know yourself, if you've ever got somebody's ever asked you how you're doing, oh yeah, I'm grand, and then, like, you want to, like, punch someone in the face, like, really hard, or you want to, like, or you're just angry at the world and everything or something. Like, if you've got someone who empowers you to kind of talk out about how you're actually feeling, then that's something that's it's pretty rare, I find. I kind of try to be kind of like Kieran in that regard, where it's kind of like, empower others to, talk about their baggage.
Yeah.
Even, like, not even talk about it, just kind of like check in. Because obviously you don't have to tell any of us anything. Like, it's not. It's never one of those kind of things where it's like, oh, tell me. It's kind of like, how are you keeping? Any news? Or how's your head been since whatever? Because you can tell people stuff. Like, like I remember going to Kieran there the other day and just telling them that I'm not getting paid very well this month. I'm going to get paid for one week of work at this month, and that's to do for the rest of Christmas until after the English or French competition. So that's I was proper stressed over that. I said that to him. He was like, what are you going to do then? And then he's kind of, I would let the chat about it. Then it's kind of like, no, should be grand anyways. Like, I'll sort it out anyways. And then you go back to training or whatever. And it's kind of how it goes about it. It's not like, stop, let's talk about it, don't stop. And then until it's like, dead. And it just gives you, it gives you this it gave me this kind of feeling that I can actually, talk about stuff and be myself around all the lads. And
Yeah.
I don't do that with some of my friends, some of my close friends either. Like I remember talking to Derek Heinen about this, about my ex-girlfriend used to be one of my ex-girlfriends. I've had a lot of ex-girlfriends. Only one of them was in the gym. I was talking to him about it, and he was kind of like, look, I know how it feels, like, I've been kind of through similar kind of situation and everything, and like it's just kind of nice the way a coach can give that empowerment to the students, so then the students can then bond, and therefore they're bonding with the coach as well, because inadvertently, because the coach is the one that's giving you confidence to talk to him, talk to your friends, and then think about it yourself, where you can be confident in yourself to talk about it, and even just think about it, because a lot of people don't actually realize that you thinking about it is a big factor in how you deal with stuff. Because if you push it, it's just going to, and it has been a huge thing of, I know kind of went off topic there, but it has been a huge thing of it has given me kind of like, the SOAR kind of gave me the ability to talk about it, but not comfortably.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of the things where it's there and you talk about it if it comes up, but it won't be a very comfortable conversation. But whenever I'm with the lads, whenever I'm with Kieran, it can literally be like, no, I feel like shit. This week's been absolutely fucking dog shit, and I want to stab myself in the face with a spoon, that kind of thing. That sounds funny, but I've wanted to do that many times. This week is not one of them though, because I'm on the weekly. But that's actually for real. But yeah, no, it is. It's something, when you experience it, it's something like, yourself, whenever you experience it, it is one of those things that you kind of get when other people say it, as in like, oh, I've got a brilliant coach, like, he's like a friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I that's the same with me, like,
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, that's good. But it's like that. Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying though. It's like, it's the importance of having someone who's not just a coach figure, who's obviously kind of brilliant at what he does, but also like someone who will. It doesn't have to be every conversation between you and Kieran or whatever. It doesn't have to be about how you are, like, mentally. It just check in almost, like, just a little thing about whatever's going on in that time, and So then, like, I always ask people this, Con, when I'm talking to people who compete, right? Does that not add a lot of pressure on you mentally when you're competing?
To which part exactly?
Just the build up, basically. It's more the build up.
The build up to competitions, like, with kind of trying to make your friends proud and stuff, or your coach kind of. You'd be surprised. Well, actually, I got a good bit of mixed bags in this, so this is great. Sometimes it's kind of like, oh yeah, no, we're grand. Just go in there, have fun, do your thing. Yeah. And it's never really like, oh, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Sometimes people react. Sometimes people love doing that kind of thing. Like, I remember one of our lads, Jordan, Kieran Donald went to him. Right, you're going to go in here, you're going to take him down, you're going to pass his guard, you're going to stick him to the ground, and then you're going to sit down. And that's what happened. Did it within a minute and a half. Really, he's one of those kind of robot. It's like he's being controlled, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Start, right, Jordan, let's go for a takedown now. Takedown. And then, right, let's start past this guard now, and hit maybe a knee slice, and then into side control onto the mountain, whatever it is. But he's one of those kind of guys. I'm the kind of person where I react to, and this is another thing about your coach as well. If you've got a coach, he'll know your game plan. Mine is kind of go in and do your own thing. It sounds kind of stupid, but Kieran always kind of goes, get your takedown, stick it to the mat, and then just work your thing from there. That's kind of, I'm still working on the sticking to the mat part, but I can take it down, and they get back up, and then I get annoyed. But like, it is one of those things where, there's a bit expected of you, but it's never so much that you're going to kind of shit yourself. Obviously, your first couple of competitions, you're going to have to take a shit before you go, because nerves, because that's just how nerves work.
Yeah.
But it's never, from the coach, you'll never get this kind of thing of, oh shite, I fucked up. He'll be like, no, it's all right. Just keep working. Just keep doing what you're doing. Like, one of our lads, like, Kieran's very, very good at instilling confidence in people, and a lot of his coaches get that off of him, and I like to think that I've gotten that off some of him as well, where it's kind of like, if somebody's like not doing well, the competition's like, no, you're all right, keep going, loads of time to work or whatever. Or even in life in general, where you're kind of like, no, sure, you'll be fine. I know it sucks ass now, but and it seems to be no end, but you'll be fine anyways. Like, we're all saying we're all in this together is kind of a bit unfair, because that's not. I don't like that kind of generalization where we're all in this together. If somebody else is feeling like shit, because then they're feeling shit, and then if you say we're all in this together, then it kind of makes that person feel less important to themselves, which is a knock-on effect. But it is kind of one of those things where if you lose, then that's fine. We're still a team. Like, there's no harm. There's no harm in kind of losing, as long as you have fun. And a lot of the guys who in my gym who come up under that kind of premises of just going there and have fun, like they'd win and they'd be like, that was a good crack, or they'd lose and be like, that was one of my best roles ever with a complete stranger. Like I remember Shane Hughes. I'm not sure if you know Shane Hughes, but he'd be one of my good friends now in the gym, and he's a pretty good advocate for mental health as well. And he actively participates in kind of like, talks and stuff. In sobriety and stuff. It's kind of, I'm not sure if he does it now because he's got 3 kids now. He just had his third kid there a couple of days ago. But he used to kind of like, or he used to go to kind of like, what was it, kind of like non-alcoholics kind of meetings and stuff, which is really, really cool. But I remember it took him 3 or 4 years to get the blue belt. And Kieran was always like, no, I believe in you. You can do it. Just keep working. Like, just take some people. It took me a year and a half to get my blue belt. But like other people that might take it 2 years or 3 years. Or 4 years.
I'm on my 3rd year, Con. So I'm taking the scenic route.
Yeah, but like there's nothing wrong with that. And like it is kind of the thing of do your own thing, go at your own pace. Your coach should never be like, oh, you should be a blue belt by now, because you've been doing it for 3.5 years and 2 months and 1 day. And you know what I mean? So like there was never any, even when competing, there's never any pressure to compete. Like obviously Kieran wants you to compete and stuff, but kind of like, do you want to compete? Just see where you're at in your game plan. And actually the bastard kind of baited me into doing a competition where I got my blue belt. I was kind of like, he was kind of like, are you doing Irish Open? I was like, no, I'm not sure, because Jack was in the car and Sharon, who's Kieran's sister, was in the car as well. And he was like, no, it'll be good for you. And I was kind of like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. And Sharon was like, no, it'd be good to see where your game plan is. You kind of just see where you are in terms of your blue belt and stuff. I was kind of like, oh yeah, why not? And it cost me like €40, and that was kind of like the most expensive competition I'd done at that stage. And then I ended up running through 6 lads at the competition. Kieran still brings that up. I ended up running through 6 lads at the competition. Like the first poor fucker that came up against me, I scored something like 18 points on him to 0, and then choked him out from the back within 3 minutes. Like, why not? That poor guy, I felt sorry for him. And it wasn't even like, a rear naked choke. It was a modified fucking bow and arrow choke. So his hand was like up here, and he was like, oh, and he couldn't actually tap because I had this other hand trapped.
I think I was at that. I think I was at that tournament. I don't know.
Please no.
I have it in the back of my mind that I was at the tournament, but it could have been a different one.
But Jack Dolan was actually in my corner, and he was cornering me for that entire thing because Kieran had to stay home because I think the roads were pretty bad or something. But no, sorry, the roads weren't pretty bad because it's during summer. Basically, what happened was Kieran went up later because he had stuff to do in the morning and stuff, and I don't think there was anybody to cover his class. Right. So he came up around 1, and I just finished competing around then. And then he gave him a blue belt, and I was kind of like, "What is this?" He was like, "Well, go up to the podium, take a picture." And took a blue belt. It's like, "Oh, this is your blue belt." And I was like, "Oh Jesus, oh Jesus!" But it's never been a push to do competitions. But even in the competitions, you can't, like the way Kieran coaches, everybody else gets it from him. So it's not really like. I want to tell you an example now, and it was fucking awful because I was competing against a guy, and I could hear his corner. And I actually have a video, and you can hear. You know Kieran O'Donnell.
Yeah.
He was cornering me, and this is at Midlands Open before it was Gamma, and fucking Kieran was like, "What's it called? Let's establish the grips." And it's like, "Right, so let's control the leg and pass the guard." That's it. And then he wait a couple of seconds until I need to move position again, or he sees something that might pop up. And your man's corner was like, "Go on, get the takedown. Go. Why are you stopping? Get his legs. Grab his legs. And take him down." Now, I remember I passed his guard. I got to the back. And your man's corner was like, No. What are you doing? It's like, "Come on, get up. And it's like, pass the guard. Get up. Take him down." It's kind of like, why are you being so aggressive to your own corner?
Yeah.
And about 4 minutes in, your man's corner walked off. Like what kind of
Yeah.
Like, what kind of thing was that? And then what happened was, at the very end, he came back just when I had him in a triangle, or he just didn't talk. He went off or didn't talk, and I put him in a deep triangle. Like, I mean, like, I basically had my ear to his knee, and arm across, grabbing under the leg, grabbing the pulling the head down under the leg, everything, the whole 9 yards. And all I could hear from his corner is, "Go to sleep, don't tap, go to sleep."
Oh no.
Yeah, and I literally roared at him. I was like, "If you go to sleep, I'm never going to let you wake up." And he tapped like the second I said that. But like, I've never had anything like that from my corners, even during competitions or even in general. Like, it's just not one of those. You never feel pressure to do something like they're saying. Like, Kieran's like, "Right, it's there for you." And that's not saying get your right underhook. That's saying right underhook is there for you. It is available for you. Do you want it?
Yeah.
And then you obviously don't apply like, "Yeah, I'll take it," and then get the underhook. You kind of just go for it, or you don't, or you go for something else. And then he'll be like, "Right, that's all right. Let's move from here, or let's work from here." Like, if you get taken out, he's never like, "Oh, come back up," or sometimes will be if you can scramble. But kind of like, "Yeah, that's all right. We can work from here." And hearing, "Yeah, that's all right. We'll work from here." Or if you're trying to take something back and you roll the wrong way, it's like, "No, that's good too. Let's cross our feet and hip in and try to get the palm hook in or something." Like, it's pretty rare, and it does. And people kind of like don't really get it until they've been cornered by someone like Kieran, or even someone like the other Kieran or Jack Dolan. Jack Dolan's not a very loud corner, but when you can hear him, like, it's like he has a remote control. Like, he has a remote control. It's like, and then you're doing everything that he's just kind of saying to you. Same with Kieran Davern. Like, I try to be the same way, but like, I'm not sure how that works. But I'm kind of more. I'll be more kind of like Kieran, where it's kind of like, "Right, your right underhook's there," and then you stay silent and let him work for that. And then it's like, cross race with your left hand, and let him do his thing. And then mount is there, knee first. If you want mount, knee first.
Yeah.
It's
like a positive way of coaching, though.
And Kieran Davern does this in MMA fights. It's more prominent when you can hear it. But I remember Ronan Deegan had his, I think it was his second MMA fight. No, his first, and he was it's either Ronan Deegan or Ben Grimes, because they're both very well. He did it with both. I can't remember which one it was, but basically Ronan had it was at Gamma. It was Ronan Deegan. I think it was the winning fight, but Ronan had the man in a single leg against the fence. The Kieran was like, "Right, let's work to get this leg up higher. Let's work to get a better position in the leg." And Ronan worked a bit of the leg, kept the cable grip on the leg. Like, "Right, so let's start working for head position. And if you want to get a right underhook around the body, that's okay too." And then Ronan did just that. And the man started fighting the head position, and Ronan just kept the head position. And Kieran goes, "Brilliant head position, well done, Ronan." Like, hearing that kind of shit, you don't hear that very often.
Yeah.
Just don't. And it's only kind of like, Andrew Barrett's a great corner. You should hear him corner. He's like, "More strikes, please. Thank you." Like, he literally said, "Please and thank you." And I remember
he's a nice lad.
Yeah, basically. Until you get in the cage, then he's very scary.
Yeah.
I was actually sparring Ronan there. We were just doing that kind of fence rounds, and Andrew's kind of like, "More pot shots to the head, please." And then he started hitting me. Then Andrew's always like, "Shots to the body, please." And then he didn't do it. And then Andrew was like, "Ronan, please, shots to the body." Then he did it. And then he goes, "Thank you, good shots." I'm kind of like, I'm getting picked away here.
He sounds like Mike. He sounds like my kind of coach, to be honest with you. But listen, Con, can I talk about, because it'd be insane for me not to talk about this. But what about the origins then of the HumanzeeJitzu podcast?
I think that's funny. I think Andrew kind of started that as kind of almost a meme page. You know what I mean? Because it was a meme page at the very start, and I do enjoy the memes come out of that page. Maybe a little bit too much, because I quote them almost every day. Every time I see a new one, it's like, "Ooh," I quote it. And people are kind of like, "Is that because you're on the podcast?" Like, no, it's because I like the memes, but it's also because I'm on the podcast.
Yeah,
it has something to do with it. But basically, what happened was, actually, Humanzee's very first podcast was with me.
Right.
And he didn't know how to record properly, so we lost a whole 2-hour podcast. It's kind of like, bruh. Yeah, in that we kind of talked about mental health and jiu-jitsu and kind of how we started up on that. And then eventually what happened was that got lost. So then he kind of just did more interviews with people and stuff. Then he asked himself and then Shawty Judo to kind of like do a debate on wrestling and judo.
Mm.
And then the kind of three of us being the actual what HumanzeeJitzu Podcast is now, kind of started from there. Because it was supposed to be a debate, and then we were kind of like, this is very similar. And then Andrew was like, this is supposed to be a fight, and me and Sean was like, this is very similar. We should be friends. And then we wanted to co-host the podcast, and then that kind of stemmed off into. I'd always been a big mental health advocate, so I've always kind of wanted to do something along that lines, anyways. Like we actually kind of did something along the lines of it near maybe February or something. Could have been during summer actually. Like, probably was during summer because fucking roasting. I was getting ice cream. Yeah, probably was during summer. But I remember we talked about weight cutting and how that can affect you for jiu-jitsu and mental health wise. I touched upon it as well a little bit. And I was kind of like, oh, I'd actually like to talk about that more. And it ended up just being like, anytime we do a podcast now, it's do your weekly check-in. Because we did a huge mental health podcast kind of thing. We got loads of feedback from like different people on Facebook, from Instagram, from Reddit. Reddit's a great one. And then we kind of talked about them, but then we only got about an hour on it, and I was kind of like, no, I'd like to do that again properly to talk. And we were kind of like, no, so what we do is we meet up in person, we'll talk about kind of on a couch session where we're kind of just like kind of like to do Jonathan Ross show, like one person desk and then there, that kind of thing. And then but ever since then we've been kind of doing the whole check-in, do your mental health check-in, and it kind of just stemmed off that. But originally ended up being a meme page, and now it's kind of a very serious interview, not very semi-serious interview / mental health kind of.
What way do you go about then prepping for your guests?
You'd be surprised. Generally, what you kind of do is you kind of ask them to be on. Some people ask us to be on. We're kind of, yeah, we fucking love to have you on. For about half hour beforehand, you kind of just chat to shit, and then you start recording, and then you kind of and then obviously you kind of talk from there. And the way I only actually got to do one proper interview, and that was with Jack Keeshan. But the way that worked is kind of like how we're working now is talk for a couple of minutes beforehand. We talked during like obviously I know kind of a good bit because not a good bit, but I know a bit about him because Adrian Elbert is actually his coach, who's in Tullamore, who's Kieran's student, who's also one of my coaches whenever I go over there. And Adrian's always been very good to me, and I know how great of a coach he is and everything. So that was kind of one thing that I could always touch on, that I knew I could touch on during the interview. And then also I knew Jack was actually a music producer. He just released a song there a while ago called Jenny. It's actually about domestic abuse, and he does jiu-jitsu and everything and grappling and everything himself. Plug there for Jack Keeshan Music.
Nice.
But like that was an accident. Oh my gosh. But I knew about that anyways, and it kind of would be where you kind of have your set questions, kind of where it's kind of like, what's your favorite move? What's this? What would be a good beginner move? When have you done your first competition? How many competitions? How do you get on? What's your favorite move in the competition / rolling? Because everybody's actual game different between competition and rolling. Mine does anyways. You know what I mean? So you kind of like to touch on that kind of stuff, and then, but it's not just like, we're kind of talking now, we're kind of working the questions into the conversation. That's how it should be done. But sometimes it's kind of just like, oh, when is your first competition? And it's like, all right, cool, and then move on to the next question. It's almost like a really boring interview. But I remember saying to Jack, like, oh, speaking of doing jiu-jitsu, how long were you doing jiu-jitsu till you start competing, if that makes sense? Were you at it long, or how did that work for you, or how did it go for you? And that's kind of like, that'd be kind of like how you kind of work it in. It's kind of more along the lines of a theme and a concept rather than here's your set questions. If you can ask the set question, if you can work it into your conversation, that's great. It kind of just happens to be worked into your conversation. But really there's really not much prep for the way I do it. Kind of like the way we're kind of running it here, where you kind of just give them a lowdown of what's going to go on. You bounce off each other, and that's how it works. And I've always preferred it that way rather than just like your typical thing. And when you bounce it off each other, you're relating to each other more so than just being like a job interview kind of.
Do you know Do you know the thing before we start recording? Like, if I haven't met someone before, like I haven't met you in person before, if only text you, I like just doing the maybe 2 minutes and then getting into the conversation. And the reason really is because I learn all about you during that chat, like, and I think it produces kind of more a better response from me to come back and ask you questions on it rather than knowing loads of stuff about you and then that becomes kind of static questions then in the middle, and I don't really want that,
Yeah, it is a little bit strange with the kind of static questions. I find them a little bit off-putting, and it can kind of kick the flow of the podcast a little bit. Now, with all of your podcasts, I listen to Kieran Davern, I listen to Ginny Breslin. It is all conversation. It's not just like it's not like you're interviewing for a job and this is how you do this and this is how good you are at this, so therefore you're good at this, and then it is a genuine flow into conversation.
Yeah.
And it's more genuine, I think. Like if you're just chatting to somebody, as a chat rather than just an interview. Because like if you've ever been on Tinder, trying to talk to somebody there is kind of pretty shit. But if you talk on the phone, then you're actually talking to them. It's not just like, well, how are you? Good. How about you?
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah.
It ends up being a proper conversation. It's more genuine and it's more relatable too, I think. Genuinely. Because some people kind of like, oh, I did that as well.
Yeah.
And it kind of it doesn't really force you, but it kind of lets you be a bit more kind of like intimate with the reactions and the responses.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like you're running the mill. When did you start training? Or obviously that's the question you asked, but it wasn't just like when you start training. It was worked off.
Yeah, it's like a setup question.
Exactly.
So let me ask you an actual interview question.
Oh my gosh!
What do you like to do in your spare time, Con?
My spare time, Jesus, I don't have much spare time these days. I like to eat. I eat a lot of food. I love to cook. I actually cooked Christmas dinner last year. Christmas dinner this year. I just remembered that I have to buy so many things. But yeah, no, I love cooking food. So my kind of thing will be cooking food, watching the series, chilling out. I watch a lot of.
What do you like to cook? What do you like to cook, actually?
Literally everything.
Right.
Actually, apart from vegan food.
Okay.
But that's just out of spite because my sister's vegan.
Oh, right. Okay, that's all right.
I can cook vegan food and it's all very delicious, but I just don't like cooking because my sister's vegan. I just like annoying about it. It's like I'll be in the middle of dicing up chicken breasts or something, or because I break down if I get a whole chicken, and if I'm not roasting a whole chicken, I'll break it down into chicken breasts, chicken wings, chicken drumsticks and stuff. Very messily, but I'll do it. But then I'm kind of like, Lucy, do you want some chicken? And like have a piece of raw chicken just like sitting on the chopping board. She'd be like, ooh. That's the whole, but like that's kind of the part and parcel of cooking. But it is kind of like, if any of you know Gordon, obviously you watch Gordon Ramsay. Well, like it is kind of the things where you watch kind of Kitchen Nightmares and you're kind of like, that looks nice. I could try that. While he's actually being like, you're a fucking donkey. But he's just like, but then every so often these little hidden gems like something to do with steak, or let's say with a burger.
Yeah.
You're left at the bottom so the juices don't ruin the bun. That kind of thing. And that's kind of like, I love kind of making weird shit where kind of like, not weird shit, but like you've never tried it before and it works out grand. Kind of like, oh boy. Yeah. Like I remember a while ago I did a roast lamb, a leg of lamb. And I was kind of like, I've never done this before, but had it before, but I'm not sure it's going to turn out this way. And I had no oranges, so I just did it in lemon zest and stuff, and it ended up being class. And those kind of little things. And then, so
you'd be an adventurous cook. Would that be the best way of putting it?
Kinda. I like to stick to my basic stuff, but every so often I'll kind of change it up. It's kind of more like it would be semi-adventurous, kind of like But like whenever it comes to Christmas kind of stuff, I just fuck everything in the oven and roast it. But it takes a lot of prep to kind of do that stuff, and that's the one thing I don't like about cooking is prepping. I love chopping. I've actually got my own chef's knife and stuff to kind of negate the fact that I hate preparing food. Like I hate peeling onions and I hate chopping onions. And I fucking hate garlic because it makes your hands smell like garlic for the next 5 days, and then you're putting clothes in the rack and work, and then the clothes smell like garlic. Not the point. But I do love a bit of food, and I do love watching series. But the only problem is trying to find a series to watch, and then your food goes cold. And then,
But what? So tell me then, like, what kind of series are you talking about? You watching Netflix stuff or things like that?
I kind of just watch anything really because
Okay.
I've got YouTube Premium, so I can. I kind of bought that as a trial. So fine, and then it ended up being class. And I'm actually watching Impulse on YouTube right now. And if you've seen Jumper, which is released in 2006 with Hayden
Hmm.
Christensen, who actually played Anakin, this guy from Star Wars, uh, he um, he plays the main character in Jumper, and basically he's a teleporter, but
Right.
he can do he can actually teleport. Like it's not, you just need a machine or anything. But Impulse is kind of like a carry on from that. And I'm not sure how
Right.
it ties in yet, but my brother was watching, said it actually ties in, and I kind of fucking mind up on how it ties in. It's really cool. I started watching that, and I've been kind of staying up late and watching and not sleeping for work while watching that recently. But,
It's. I
like
think you
Netflix,
know. You know my he's my buddy on the podcast. He does the technical side of things. John Francis over here, and
oh
he
yeah,
he was talking to me about that. I think.
Impulse.
I think he was. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's actually class because there's a second season out now, and I didn't realize this. I was like, I started being like, oh, it's only going to be like 5 episodes, and I have to wait every week for an episode. But that's why I kind of like watching kind of series, is in like I'll watch them in bulk rather than watching them waiting for week to week because I hate wait. I'm really impatient when it comes to this kind of shit. So I'll be like, no, I just want to watch the series now. So with something like Game of Thrones came out, myself and my ex girlfriend, when I was a girlfriend at the time, different girlfriend at the time. We waited until it was all out until the last last episodes because we wanted to kind of just run through it
Yeah.
rather than waiting every week. No, it ended up being kind of we ended up doing it a bit earlier and ended up kind of like catching the last 4 episodes week to week because we were living together at that stage. And I kind of ended up better that way. But in general, it is kind of one of those things where you want to watch a series, you want to watch it in bulk. Like, do you know The Witcher?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when that came out in bulk, and that was class. Like, but I know for a fact that if I had to wait a week for each episode of that, I'd go nuts.
Yeah. Look.
So Netflix is grand if it has all the series. Like Attack on Titan and Netflix is grand, but it only has one of the series, and that really pisses me off.
We
Because then I
see.
have to go with something else. And then,
My we have a bit of crack about it in training that I don't watch series exactly the reason you just explained there. I can't wait for a week to watch the next episode. I watch films all the time. That's my love kind of is films. But with series, like I get exactly what you're saying. You know, I remember. I'm making me sound really old, but like 20 years ago, when you had to you have to wait a week between the series, and I think that just put me off for life.
it is, yeah. No, I'd be like yourself, kind of like, and the worst thing is trying not to get like a bunch of spoilers. So I was fucking waiting for the series to end. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
here, like, don't spoil it. Then someone's like, oh, did you see Game of Thrones? Like, what happened? Like, this happened. It's kind of like, you didn't even let me answer. Like, you spoiled the whole thing for me.
Yeah, it's all over Twitter, or it's all over Facebook, and it's so hard to
Yeah.
avoid spoilers in general. But
I remember, I remember watching Grey's Anatomy's finale last year's season. I was just like, I'm just gonna turn off all notifications from there just so I kind of binge it a little bit
yeah,
because I missed the last 4 episodes. Like, you know yourself, man. That's why
oh
cinema. Why I'd say why you like movies so much because like sequel's probably already out.
yeah,
Like I'd say you love Lord of the Rings, don't you?
I don't love it. I did like it when it came out, but I'm like, I wouldn't watch it again. Do you know what I mean? But I can see why people think I'd like it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just kind of a long series. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's not. You don't have to wait for anything. Let's think of another one. Attack on Titan is probably one of them. Actually, there's a new series of Attack on Titan, so that's kind of pissed me off. And I really want to watch it, but the spoilers everywhere, so I'm probably going to start watching it. There's a few TV series out there that fucking, they're proper series like The Expanse. Have you seen that on
right.
Prime?
No, we only got Prime actually. I think the last couple of weeks, so we haven't really
Watch
dug
The
into it.
Expanse. Watch
Okay,
that shit. Oh, watch Carnival Row.
what is it?
Carnival Row.
Okay, I'll put it down. I'll write it down.
It's really fucking good. Like your mind's gonna be like, whoa.
Well, listen,
But like,
listen.
it is one of those kind of things where movies are kind of better for that kind of.
Yeah, I prefer them, but like, what are the? I know this is it's always a tough question to ask anyone. What's the plans for the future, Con?
Well, as of now, I want to buy a car.
Hey, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And it is kind of one of those things where I'm working my ass off, and don't think I really need is a car, because I work in town. My gym is in town. I pay for my own food here at home. I'll get a lift with my parents every so often, but I feel bad kind of doing that because they're my parents and they've got their own shit going on. They've got my sister and everything else. So I just kind of want my own car. Like that's for the near future. I kind of just want my own car. And it's been very disappointing with work and stuff recently, where it's kind of like COVID and everything work kind of fucked up my payslip a little bit. So like I couldn't actually apply for the loan, and then I lost out on like a €200 deposit on the car, and I was like, oh, bro. And that's a non-refundable deposit, so I lost that forever.
Of course.
Yeah. But yeah, no, just kind of at the moment it's a car. I kind of just like finishing up my fucking driving shite and getting some car.
Yeah.
Like I'm applying for a big enough loan, like something like 25 grand or something, but like most of that's my insurance and my tax. Like the car itself doesn't actually cost that much because it's a car, but like the rest of it's like insurance, and like certain insurances you need an extra. If there's an accident, you need to pay the first X amount of money. Like from my current one, it's like you need to pay the first like $3 grand, and I'm just kind of like, oh, so that's either $3 grand I have to take out. But like, yeah, and it is kind of one of those things where I'm buying a really, 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 really nice, well, not really, really nice car, but just a car that I really, really like.
Yeah. And
rather than a lot of people said to you, just get a piece of shit, like, it'll last for a while. Like, I don't want that. I want to be driving around in a car that I like. Like, and I want to keep it for ages and ages and ages. Not ages and ages and ages, but like, I want to keep it rather than just like, getting it and fucking it away in a year and then, like, not being satisfied with it and having all these problems with it. Like, I'd rather spend the money, get a good car and, like, kind of just to make my own car of it. Like, I might put maybe a splitter or something. I sound like such a boy racer, but maybe a splitter. Well, it's an Audi A6, so it's not a boy racer.
No.
Putting a splitter on it, putting a little spoiler, little kind of shit that I like.
Yeah.
And then keep it for a while, because I don't understand people who kind of like get cars every 6 months. It's kind of like, if you don't like your car, it's like, no, it's not. Because I've always loved the kind of cars that my dad's gotten, because he's kind of a big enough guy, so he's like 6 foot tall and he's a barrister, so like he's all kind of driving around in SUVs because he kind of had a bad back, and I kind of like that, where he kind of kept it for a few years rather than just changing every year. And he liked his cars, like not as in like he'd be enthusiast, but I love all those kind of YouTube, like Hoonigan and fucking Donut and stuff on YouTube. So anytime I see a car, I'm just like, oh, like driving by. I'm like a fucking dope. So I'm like, oh. So getting a car, kind of making it my own kind of thing is probably the plans are now. I'm also studying for the aeronautical engineering module. So there's 16 modules in total that I have to do. And then once you do them, you apply for a job. And it's kind of a loophole because I'm not doing it in an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So you apply for a job, and then they're kind of like, oh, you don't have any experience, but it's like, I've passed all my modules test. So they're like, oh, okay, well then we can give you experience for 2 or 3 years, and then once you've done that, you're a fully qualified aeronautical engineer. Then you can go into aircraft leasing, or you can go into aircraft mechanics, or you can go into aircraft diagnostics, or whatever it is you want to do there. But that's kind of like what I'm working on now, aside from coaching and wrestling. Oh yeah, I also want to do a lot of stuff in wrestling, like Europeans and world. If I can get the world stuff, I kind of want to try help build a team Ireland, but that's
down the
road.
Yeah,
that's kind of down the road. So I'm kind of waiting for COVID to die down a little bit.
But that's a quality list of stuff. Do you know what I mean? In the sense of, a lot of people are a little bit, when I don't ask everybody the question, but when I do ask, some people hum and haw for a bit and they're not quite sure. But that's good to have all those kind of things right in front of you. Do you know, it's important.
It is kind of nice. Like, it's probably with yourself. Like, what have you got for the future of Wheatley?
Like, I want to kind of keep getting, interesting guests, all different types of guests, from what we had last week, talking about like mental health, what to do with pregnant women and young people, to what we were talking about, your own mental health and the kind of surrounding it in jiu-jitsu and how people talk to each other on the mats. And it's like, I love just having chats with people who are completely different from the last person, and I think that's important. And like, where can people actually listen to your podcast?
My podcast is actually on YouTube and Spotify and SoundCloud, I think.
There you go.
not 100% sure on SoundCloud, but
It's
it is on
definitely
Spotify.
on YouTube.
It's definitely on YouTube, and it's definitely on Spotify. Just HumanzeeJitzu Podcast, and yeah, it's kind of like yourself. We just love having the kind of chats, like, and it is kind of those kind of things where I might get you on now in the HumanzeeJitzu just to do, like, a you interview, because you're kind of interviewing people, but nobody gets really, well, I'm not sure if nobody gets to interview you, but like you will actually be, well, we'll interview you then. I'll interview you then myself then, and that's a promise. We'll do it after Christmas.
Brilliant, brilliant.
But like, yeah, it is very similar. We're as you said, love getting different guests on. We all love just talking to shit, like, chatting to chat. Like, you know what I mean? It's nice to see, kind of like, whenever, like, I'll stick on a podcast every so often whenever I'm, like, cycling to town or something, or whenever I'm kind of just doing a bit of work around the garden. Like, I'd much prefer listening to a podcast doing work around the garden and listening to music.
Yeah,
music is a bit, I love listening to music when I'm cooking, but whenever I'm, like, doing work, I like listening to podcasts. It's kind of strange.
But no, I think it's good. I listen to podcasts and on the bike and all that as well. And when I'm out running and things, I just love doing it. But listen, Con, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and great crack. And I really appreciate you coming on, because, like I said, people reaching out and just let me know they want to come on is class for me. And thanks very much. And I know you training this evening. Well, have you got training this evening?
Yeah, it's not until like 6 or 7 though. It's kind of just.
You never stop though, do you? You just keep training.
No, that's kind of something my dad's kind of actually instilled in me. It's kind of like, just keep going. It's kind of like, okay, Dad, whatever. And then,
hey, dads give the best advice. But hang on there for me, Con. So I need to take a photo at the end, all right? But I'll just go through the end here. So listen, thanks very much to Jer, Calvin, my mum, my dad, John's family, and Megan. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts, all those ones that we're on. There's a few of them. I never remember them. I should write them down. Yeah, there's too many. But listen, thanks again to Con, and thanks to everyone else for listening, and we will chat to you very soon. Bye.
Thanks very much.